A year and a half ago in January 2015, Linda Moulton Howe received an email from a retired 60-year-old U.S. Navy Petty Officer First Class Flight Engineer, who asked Linda Moulton Howe to only call him Brian. Brian entered the U.S. Navy in 1977, and retired 20 years later in 1997. He and his C-130 crew encountered high strangeness in Antarctica from 1995 to 1996. Several times, they all saw rapidly moving silver disks over the trans-Antarctic mountains. Brian and his crew also saw a huge, football field-sized hole in the ice only about 5 to 10 miles from the geographic South Pole that was supposed to be a no-fly zone. But during an emergency medevac crisis, to speed up their trip, they flew across the no-fly zone and saw apparently what they were not supposed to see, a huge hole in the ice entrance to an underground installation. Later at a camp near Marie Byrd Land, some dozen scientists disappeared for 2 weeks. When they reappeared, Brian's flight crew was assigned to pick them up, and all were silent and appeared scared. Brian and his C-130 crew received orders to not talk about the silver disks, the huge ice hole and the missing, scared scientists. Repeatedly the crew was sternly told that they did not see what they kept seeing. But Brian was never asked to sign an official non-disclosure agreement. So now that he's retired from the Navy while still working in civilian aerospace, Brian wanted to share what he has seen and experienced with Linda Moulton Howe at Earth Files because he is convinced that an alien presence is living and working on this planet. Linda Moulton Howe and Brian had never met until Thursday evening, June 2, 2016, at the Contact in the Desert conference in Joshua Tree, California. They organized to meet with his nephew, Kelly, and a friend to talk more about Brian's Antarctica experiences. They all went to a local Mexican restaurant and after dinner, they kept talking until after midnight outside in the restaurant parking lot under trees. That weekend, Brian returned to his home in Phoenix, Arizona, and on Monday, June 6, was back at his aerospace job, while Linda Moulton Howe was still at Contact. That morning Brian received a surprising and disturbing phone call. "Brian, Brian," and the voice on the other end of the line said, "Is this Brian?" He said, "Yes, who is this, because I didn't recognize the number. I want to tell you that what you have been talking about you need to stop talking about." And he said, "Well, what stuff was that?" And he says, "We know that you were with Linda Howe on last Thursday night and we know that you went to dinner at a Mexican restaurant in Joshua Tree and we were aware of what you were talking about with her and other people and that your experience that you had when you were on the ice when you were in the service. We don't want you talking about that. Specifically, we don't want you talking about the scientists that you picked up after being missing for a couple of weeks." And he said, "How would you know about that? I've only talked to certain people." And the voice in the phone said, "Well, we know pretty much everything." And he said, "Just don't be putting that out there anymore. Certain people would prefer that you not talk about that." And he said, "Well, I'll consider that." And then the phone went dead. There was a click. Whoever was on the other end hung up. It was like, wow, this is out of the blue. Linda asked, "What did you do next?" "Well, I was kind of curious, so I took the number off my cell phone and Googled it on the internet. It came back as the general phone number for the NSA. The National Security Agency in Fort Meade, Maryland. Yes. And I called Kelly, my nephew, and he Googled it, too. Why would you get a threat specifically using my name now in June of 2016? The only thing that I come up with is that reports that have been going on the internet of that British documentary team that was down there in Antarctica. Something that was found under the ice, alleged pyramid. That team went missing and they have not found those people since. Possibly that documentary team was in the same area that those scientists went missing for those 2 weeks and somebody does not want, others, putting 2 and 2 together and going, well, you know there are people down there who went missing for 2 weeks back in the 1990s, January 1996, and now these people, British documentary, are missing and haven't been found yet. Maybe there is a correlation there. Linda, would you have ever suspected that we were being spied upon and listened to in both the restaurant and where we talked on the grass near the parking lot? Brian, I would never have thought that. But now, my 20 years in the military, there are things that I saw that I really can't talk about that tells me and has shown to me that our government is capable of anything. Okay, so finding this out that they knew that you and I and other people were where we were that night, it does not surprise me. With the work that you do and as accurate as the information you find and as hard as you work to verify the truth of what you report on, I can imagine that you are watched quite a bit, you know. Laughs. We're supposed to be American citizens protected by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. We are not doing anything that is wrong. No, I don't think we are either. And you were never asked in your service for the United States Navy to sign a non-disclosure agreement about any of those efforts in Antarctica, correct? Yet. At the time when I was in the service and those incidents happened, we were verbally told we couldn't say anything to forget about it, but I never signed a non-disclosure of anything that I did while I was serving in the Navy. In Antarctica? In Antarctica, yes. If anyone has more information about collaboration of American or other scientists with an alien presence underground in Antarctica, please contact Earthfiles at earthfiles.com. All requests for confidentiality are honored.